So I'm going to go anthropologist on you here for a minute. So belly fat and weight gain are symptoms of something deeper. So I like to look at evolutionary biology. That's how my brain thinks. Like, how did we evolve? Like, what's going on here? So one thing that's interesting is I know elephants are actually large, but they're not actually considered obese. They do not exhibit metabolic syndrome. They don't have heart disease, cancer, diabetes, all these things. They don't go on diets. They don't count calories or count carbs. And maybe we could have had like a gazelle here or an antelope or something that looks more idea of muscular and fit. But like if you take this elephant in the wild, living in its natural habitat, and you put it in a zoo, you put it in confinement, obesity affects 40% of African elephants in captivity. So as much as we see humans, or much as we see in humans, excess fat in elephants contributes to the development of heart disease, arthritis, and a shorter lifespan and infertility. So fertility is another point. Like as a species, our fertility is on the decline. So people who are worried about population explosions and things like that, we're kind of slowly turning a corner of a fertility crisis because our hormones are so out of whack, both men and women. Our hormones are so out of whack from how we're living our lives. So indigenous people don't become obese. And by the way, I'm not making a parallel between indigenous people and animals, which is actually something that old school anthropologists and scientists used to do. That's not my point. My point is indigenous people, not all of them, but many of them are still living in a way that works with our evolutionary biology. They're eating real food, they're in a more chill environment, they're getting microbial spores from intact ecosystems, or breathing forest air, or they're getting exposure to the right kinds of microbes. They have less toxic exposure, and usually, barring some horrible stressor, a little bit more chill life. So they don't become obese, and they don't go on diets, and they eat carbs and all that stuff. Some of them eat a lot of animal products and have no heart disease or diabetes or whatever, like the Maasai or what Inuits used to do before they were Americanized or Canadianized. And then, and then there are populations that eat like mostly starchy root vegetables and berries and things like that. They eat a lot of carbohydrates and they eat some animal products, but they don't have metabolic syndrome. They're not going on diets, and they actually have really better dental health, better fertility, and they tend to have microbiomes that are very diverse. Like they have microbes that we consider parasites, like tapeworms and things living in them, but they have no diarrhea or problems from it. So they have these ecosystems inside of them. They're as diverse as the Amazon jungle, and these are protective. And so one of the problems is, I guess, we're living in captivity now. So the question is, how can we still live in the modern world, but allow ourselves, give our bodies the support they need to connect to our evolutionary biology in a way that we can thrive? Okay, so one of my favorite things to tell people is, what does calorie restriction do? I still have people that after years of me telling them, stop worrying about calories, it's hard to stop thinking that way. We've all been brainwashed, we've all been programmed, right? So when you decrease your calories, when you restrict calories, you just eat less or whatever, and you think in calories, I'm gonna have on a low calorie, whatever thing, you decrease your metabolism. So the less you eat, the less you can eat without gaining weight. So you get to the point where you eat very little meals and you're still overweight and you're still gaining, and it's really maddening. It also makes you hungrier, so you're hungry all the time. So it means you have a hormone called leptin that makes you feel full is low, and the hormone ghrelin that makes you feel hungry, I think of ghrelin like your stomach's growling because you're hungry, is high, right? It also can cause muscle and bone loss because you're living off your own, you're eating your own tissues, you're metabolizing your own tissues for sustenance. And it increases stress hormones that trigger insulin, which is a fat storage hormone. So basically, if you want to gain weight and be miserable, then go on a low calorie diet. So calorie restriction, you probably heard this before, and I used to not know if that was real or urban legend or whatever, but research seems to support that when you go and do calorie restriction, and this can even happen if you overly restrict fats or you overly restrict carbs or things like that, it makes your body think you're starving. So it will fight tooth and nail to protect you by preserving body fat, because your body is your best friend. You cannot starve yourself into thinness. It will not work. It'll just make you miserable and sick. And it basically causes brain fog, fatigue, yuck moods, and these weight loss yo-yos and plateaus. So bad. Okay. So what ends up happening is you lose some weight initially, you plateau, you feel terrible, you can't sustain it, then you relapse, go back to your old way of eating, which wasn't balanced, and then you regain what you lost, perhaps more. So this may sound familiar to some of you. So why is this happening? So there's a theory, there's this that seems pretty plausible to me. It's a body fat set point theory, this idea that your brain has mechanisms for regulating your metabolism. So, and it's something that nature, we evolved in nature to stabilize our weight and protect us from famine, which is brilliant. That's why I say inner genius. Nature's genius, our bodies are genius. So we have these genius mechanisms to protect us, but unfortunately we're doing things to such an extreme that it's really confusing our bodies because we don't have an evolutionary precedent for so many of the things we're doing that are throwing ourselves out of whack. So the thing is, we haven't had enough time to evolve protection from the dangerous degrees of excess we've been living. So we're in this gap between our evolutionary biology, what's set up for us, and then these ways we're living that we're falling through this kind of crack. So then, okay, so if we have a body point, a body fat set point that's supposed to keep a normal weight, then how come we become so overweight? So I think of obesity as dysregulation or confusion of the body fat set point. So it's just confused, it's dysregulated, it's not regulating properly. So what's going to what regulates our set points? I call it our cellular symphony. So if you think of like how cells, which are made of molecules and atoms, if you think of how cells and all the chemicals of life work together, it's like this harmony, it's like a symphony. And it's magical, and there's a certain way it balances itself. It has these checks and balances that are really amazing. But if you put it under extreme stress and imbalance, then at some point it's going to get out of tune. It's not going to play harmoniously. So our biochemistry is so important. So our hormones, our neurotransmitters, the chemicals that make our cells work. Not just our human cells, but our microbial cells. We have more microbial cells than human cells. We get more genetic information from microbes than we get from our own cells. So this is really important to understand. Our immune function, inflammation really throws everything off. When your immune system is overreacting, then it makes it hard for that balance to happen. It's like complete chaos. And then the brain. So our brain, because of trauma, because of, all kinds of different things that happen, the way we think even, there are just so many different things that affect the brain. And there's something called neuroplasticity, which is how you can wire or rewire your brain. So your brain actually, there are glands in your brain that actually are really, or even structural parts of the brain that are really important for regulating your metabolic set point. So when those are thrown off, then, you dysregulate. And then epigenetics, when you turn certain hormones on and off, then that can also change your metabolic set point for the better or for the worse. So when we disrupt all these mechanisms, this delicate symphony, this harmony, our cells play out of tune and we get physically and mentally ill. And then, belly fat's just a symptom of that, or weight gain. So hormones, I think a lot of you guys know by now that hormones play a really important role in weight gain. One of the most important ones is insulin. It's considered, this is an oversimplification, but it's considered a fat storage hormone, or the hormones that also affect your appetite. But if you lose something, and this, I don't want to get too technical here, you can ask questions about the hormones, but basically if your insulin and blood sugar are not balanced, then you're going to have more of a likelihood to gain belly fat. So chronic high insulin, when you have chronic high insulin, your body stores more fat around your belly. So if you have belly fat, that's a symptom of chronic high insulin, but it can also be edema, which I'll get to in a minute. Stress hormones trigger an insulin response, and they also trigger inflammation. So that's why stress causes weight gain. And then testosterone, here's something interesting. Stress hormones stress hormones tear down muscle and cause fat storage. Testosterone breaks down fat and helps build muscle. So that's something interesting. And exercise is a really good way to help build your testosterone, but so is calming down your adrenals, because your adrenals make those glands above your kidneys make the precursors to testosterone. Estrogen progesterone balance is a big deal. So one of the things I've really been learning more and more about recently is something called dirty estrogens, which are these synthetic estrogens that mess up our receptor sites and can cause weight gain. not to be confused with our natural estrogen that our body makes. And men and women, we both have estrogen, progesterone. It's just women we have more of it. So if you don't have enough progesterone or you have too many dirty estrogens, I have some different tools for dealing with this that are really great. But that even, it doesn't matter if you're still menstruating or postmenopausal, it does need to be addressed. And same thing with men. So when men are imbalanced in this way and have these dirty estrogens, they can get what are called man boobs and tend to have prostate issues. And then the thyroid is like the thermostat of your body, and it has a lot to do with your metabolism. And your metabolism isn't just burning calories or putting on fat or whatever. Your metabolism is the sum total of all chemical processes happening in your body at any given time. That's your cellular symphony. So the thyroid is like the conductor. So when any of these are off, then your weight is off. And so you can have the perfect diet, you can exercise and all this stuff, but you may need some support, hormone support that's more strategic. So when you combine lifestyle with, certain supplements and herbs and things like that, mindset work, stress management, things like that, and you find a way to do it that you enjoy and that you're passionate about and makes sense to you, then it's super doable and you get great results, and then you're motivated to keep it up. Oh, and hormones aren't just made in your hormone glands. They're also, your liver manages your hormones. Your liver breaks down and metabolizes hormones. So your liver, if your liver's not healthy, you're going to have hormone imbalances. And then the microbes, your microbiome, the microbes of your body actually have a crucial role in regulating hormones. So if you take antibiotics or if your microbes are out of whack, then you actually, there's more and more research on the microbiome and weight gain. I mean, there are mice, they do these things where they'll do a fecal transplant from an obese mouse to a thin mouse and will become obese, vice versa. So the microbes in your body are really, really, really play a huge role in your weight and your health, mental and physical health. So a lot of belly weight, so there's the chronic high insulin and actual fat in your belly, but sometimes what's happening in your belly is edema, and that's what Jessica was talking about. She had a lot of edema, and so she lost all this weight really fast, not because she was, she lost some fat, but a lot of the rapid loss was she had food she was reacting to. Her immune system was protecting her by pooling fluid in her abdomen. So a lot of people, when you just get rid of foods that are toxic and inflammatory that your immune system is reacting to, like your stomach will start to flatten out pretty quickly. And then you can kind of see what's the belly water, what's the edema, and what's actual fat. So again, this is caused by gut issues, including food intolerances. It's a little more complex than that, but so healing your gut can help you lose weight is one thing I want to let you know. And actually the client example was Jessica. Okay. All right, so your immune system and weight gain play a huge part. Your immune system and weight gain are connected. So anything that causes inflammation will affect your weight. Anything that causes a microbial imbalance, your microbes are part of your immune system and your metabolism. They're part of you, they're a functional organ. Fluid retention can add weight. If your lymph glands, so that picture, you see all these little lymph glands, if those aren't working right, you can retain fluid. And your gut-brain axis, the way your gut and brain work together and your brain regulates your metabolic set point, then so it's all that, your gut, your microbiome, your immune cells, and your lymph are all connected in weight gain. And so diet and exercise affect those things, but sometimes there are more pieces to the puzzle that need to be addressed. So how do set points get unconfused? You basically just work backwards from the root causes, right? So if you have toxins, stress, trauma, poor nutrition, and microbial imbalances, if you can reverse those, then the weight will start to come off naturally.